I feel like isolation is the best gift that somebody could be gifted with. Being by yourself, speaking from experience as somebody who is a big time loner, somebody who moves by themselves in everything that they do. I am not only physically independent, but I am also like emotionally and mentally independent. And by emotionally independent, I just mean that I don't depend on other people in order for me to be on a different level or on a different vibration by mentally independent. And I feel like this is a lot of people's weakness, especially people who have depression and anxiety, is that we want to run to people for them to be our safe spot or our comfort zones. People with depression do not click well with being by themselves. I feel like loneliness is the main root of our depression, and that's why we say things like nobody cares about me, or I have nobody, or I have no friends. And at times it's true, but at times it's just our mind telling us that, we don't receive certain types of attention from people, so therefore we assume that they don't like us or they don't love us, especially regarding our families. You know, the thing that I've noticed as somebody with depression is that whenever I am in the middle of an episode, a depression episode, I want a certain type of attention from my family members. I feel like, yes, I like being by myself whenever I feel under the weather or whenever I have an episode, but also I feel like it hurts when people don't realize that I'm hurting, or when people don't attend to me when I'm hurting. So when I say I've learned to be mentally independent, I mean I have learned to attend to myself the way I want other people to attend to me. I've learned to be there for myself. And that is actually a very hard skill to learn. So I just simply tell myself one thing that I feel like I've registered in my mind, one thing I feel like I've replaced, the thought of nobody cares about me. I feel like I've replaced it with everybody has something that they're going through. And majority of the time when people don't recognize that you're not okay, might be because they might also be fighting their own battles. I don't always notice when somebody's okay, is not okay. So I understand when people don't recognize that I'm not okay. But one thing I feel like I am still struggling with is when I tell somebody my problems, when they tell you to vent, when they tell you to just talk to somebody, and you do tell them, but their response or their energy is not what you expected or is not relevant to what you're going through. So I feel like that's the reason why I find it hard to talk to people. I find it hard to just open up because you never know whether or not you're opening up to the right person. Even though you open up to somebody you trust, their response cannot be something you can control. Their response is out of your control. So how do you know who to talk to? Even if they're people close to you, you know? And one thing I realize is that as a depressed person, you don't need advice. The last thing you need is advice. And the one thing you need the most is just somebody to listen to you. I feel like if we could all have that, if we could all be given that space to open up without interruptions, that space to open up without somebody giving you advice, just somebody to listen, and I feel like my biggest pet peeve too is when somebody says, I understand what you're going through. I know that's, you want that to be somehow comforting, but it's not necessarily that comforting. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like when somebody tells me, I understand what you're going through, it's not doing what you think it's doing. So when I started moving by myself and I started being by myself, something that is considered unhealthy by the world is, it's not necessarily keeping your problems to yourself. But one thing I have learned throughout this whole journey of isolation is to show up for myself. Yes, it does get hard at times. Yes, it does get lonely. Yes, I still need somebody to talk to. But when I learn to show up for myself when in need, it becomes easier to not feel like I need to depend on somebody else in order for me to feel well or in order for me to feel okay. Moving or being in the midst of isolation, I feel like one thing I have opinionated around is that isolation builds so much character, way more than being surrounded by people. In isolation, because consider this, being surrounded by people can cause so many distractions. Being surrounded by people causes so many distractions, not regarding life or your goals or your plans, just regarding character development. You are put in this world to become a certain somebody. And when you're surrounded by certain types of influences, certain types of people, it becomes hard. It becomes hard to stick on that path that you're meant to be on. Because there's just, we are given this image, like I said in my previous podcast, that we're given this image that we're expected to be like, and it only takes so much knowledge and wisdom to stick to your own path regardless of what is required from you by society. It takes so much intelligence, to be able to tell the difference from who you are and who society wants you to be. And I feel like me moving in isolation has kept me, especially as somebody who gets easily, who used to get easily distracted because you'd want to be like so many other people in order for you to feel accepted. Moving in isolation not only built that firm foundation, but it created so much firmness around my self-love. When you love yourself, loving yourself is not, like I said, loving yourself is not pampering yourself. Yes, that can be a sort of luxury. It's not a necessity. The one common ground that's necessary in self-love is self-acceptance. And that's been really hard for me. That's been really hard for me to sit down and say, okay, so I'm made up of both good and bad. And we love our good stuff. We love the good parts of ourselves. We praise the good parts of ourselves. It's the only parts we show to society. It's the parts of us that we make visible. We make sure that people recognize. Nobody will ever show their bad sides. Nobody will ever romanticize their bad sides. And I feel like once you have mastered that quality, or that sort of strength, I guess, so to say, once you have mastered that, being able to flex your bad sides, then I feel like you've accomplished most of what is required in self-love. Once you're able, not necessarily saying, flaunting it around, that, oh yeah, guys, these are my flaws and these are my scars, and yeah, this is yeah, these are my weaknesses, thank you. But I feel like when you're able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm made up of, these are the things about myself that I cannot change, and that is okay. It's okay if you've got a weird personality. It's okay if, those small things that we consider insecurities or we consider flaws, they're not flaws. The word flaw should not exist when describing yourself, because what flaw generally means is that something that is considered a rejection by society is what we then give the term flaw. We look at ourselves and we say, okay, so this about me does not meet the beauty standard, so therefore it becomes a flaw. It's not a flaw. Beauty standards are fake. Beauty standards are fake. Luckily, right now, we live in a world where we're not required to be a certain way. We all fall under different types of groups. You just have to find that group and you just have to love it. One thing I heard before starting my whole social media platforms and everything, one thing I heard and one thing I held on to is that everybody has an audience. Everybody has an audience. And that might not necessarily imply, or it might not necessarily be directed to social media for you, but in every part of your life, there are going to be people who are going to love every part of you, the whole of you. See, moving by yourself until it's time to come out. Some of us are put like a butterfly, like a caterpillar, we are put into this cocoon until we become butterflies and are ready to come out, and we undergo that process of being put in a cocoon by ourselves. That's the process of isolation, when we build ourselves up physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We build a firm foundation in our lives before we're ready to come out. So in that process of isolation, away from everybody else, you're able to figure out what you love and what you don't love, and what you like and what you don't like, what you have and what you can change about yourself and what you can't change. And the best part of it all is that nobody can say anything. When you're in the midst of isolation, the only voice you can hear is yours. You have the ability to shut everything out. The opinions of people, physically and on social media. You're able to set those boundaries that make you feel comfortable and that make you have the peaceful energy that you need in order for you to be present. Moving in isolation gives you a sound mind and a clear vision of who you want to be. When I was away from social media, when I deleted all my social media platforms for like 9 months, I was gone. And I got to find out or figure out my own life without the influence of others, because comparison kills. Comparison kills so much character, so much dreams and personality. It kills so much, and one thing we have to understand before you want to compare your life to somebody else's is realizing how much it took for them to be where they are. We look at somebody and we're like, oh my God, I want to be like them. I want to be like who they are and how they are right now. But chances are we're not ready to sacrifice as much as they sacrificed to be where they are. So I never compare myself to somebody else because I don't know their journey, you know? I never compare myself because I don't know what they had to leave behind and what they had to take on in order for them to become the person that they are. So moving in isolation puts my vision in one direction. I don't have different paths that I move on. I only have one specific path. And, when you have built your character enough for outside influences to not have any effect on you. That's one strength of moving in isolation, is that you build this firm ground, this firm foundation that whenever there's an outside influence, you're able to identify what is right and what is wrong. You're able to identify what qualifies with your life and what doesn't, and you're able to identify what is meant for you and what isn't. And this is my favorite part about moving in isolation. I haven't experienced this myself, but one thing I have the understanding of is that moving by myself means I am able to build both sides of myself, good and bad, and equalize them. So when I have people in my life, I won't have to change myself, because the people that come into my life already accept me for both my good and my bad. See, we have people in our lives right now in the midst of our character development, and we're killing off some parts of ourselves just so we can make the other party comfortable. But once you have already built yourself off, you only attract what will accept you. That's what I feel like. I feel like once you have fully developed both sides of who you are, both the good and the bad, the people that will now enter your life won't make you or influence you to cut off certain parts of yourselves, because like I said, you're building firm foundation and boundaries, so you'll be able to identify what is meant for you and what isn't, because in our juvenile years, before we reached that certain level of maturity, we tried so hard to be what other people wanted us to be. But once you cross over, once you're from the caterpillar now into the butterfly, once you're done with that whole process, you don't necessarily rely on people that much to feel accepted, because you've already done the accepting. You've already accepted yourself enough. One term that I like to use is that people are not a necessity. People are a luxury. Yes, at times you might feel lonely. You might feel alone. And you have to identify in what aspect of your life do you feel alone. What is it that you feel like you're yearning for? What is it that you feel like you're missing in your life? Can you provide it for yourself? If no, then okay, maybe then it's time for you to go, you know what? No, I don't feel comfortable with going and searching for people, because what is meant for you will follow, but if you feels like whatever is missing in your life is something that you cannot control, wait. That's it. That's the best advice I can give you, is to wait. Being patient and waiting for things to simply flow in your life is a very big and powerful move, because we don't chase, we attract. And waiting, and simply just waiting, for what is meant for you to come is a powerful move. You know, chasing has so much downfalls in it, because when we chase, we lose ourselves. And I have been a very big victim when it comes to that. Chasing people, chasing friendships, chasing relationships. So much of chasing just means that you have to alter yourself into a specific shape in order for you to fill in that missing piece. You know, you have to downgrade yourself in order to make that certain person or that certain situation comfortable. You know, but once you attract what is good for you. You attract what will accept you as you are and as you've built yourself to become. You know, so being in the process of isolation is not something to be afraid of. Being by yourself is not something to be afraid of. But I will tell you, as much as it is great, it is hard. It's hard because we've grown up being used to being surrounded by people. You know, especially before the pandemic. We were surrounded by people everywhere, at school, at work, wherever you go. And now it's just isolation is what's required more. Distancing is what is required more. And not all of us have adapted greatly to that. But isolation and being okay with being isolated is a very big strength to have, a very great, powerful quality to have with yourself. Because there is so much growth that is done in isolation. There is so much growth that is done when you're by yourself. Because, like, everything just presents itself so clearly when you're not influenced or when you're not distracted by the outside world. You know, once you turn off your phone and you put the world away, you know, you just shut the world out and you just close the world off, everything just becomes so peaceful. And in the middle of that peace, you're just able to just think. You're just able to just be present. And everything just becomes so clear. So if you ever find that you're in the midst of isolation, take advantage of that. You know, don't rush to be in relationships. Don't rush to be in friendships. Don't just go out there and just search for that missing piece. If you feel like you're missing something, chances are you're just missing yourself. If you feel like you need something to be filled and if you feel like a person has to fill that, chances are you're missing yourself. You have to be okay with being by yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are the only person that you have in this world. You are the only person that you have in this world. Right now, you might be listening to this podcast, you're by yourself. You know, when you are feeling sad or when you are in the middle of a depression episode, you only understand what that feels like. You're the only person who knows the tears that you cry at night. You're the only person who knows the pain that you go through. So that means you have to be the person that attends to that. You cannot expect people or anything else to fill that part of yourself. Only you can. Only you can. And self-love starts with self-acceptance. Self-love starts with self-acceptance. You know, it all becomes better once you realize that everybody in this whole entire world is on the same level. Really, there's nobody better than anybody else. I don't care about social status. I don't care about money. I don't care about anything. I don't care about fame. I just don't care. We're all on the same level. We all have dark sides as much as we have good sides. We all have things that we go through. And that's when I realized that I cannot want to be accepted or seek validation from people who are on the same level as I am. I cannot want to feel like once I'm accepted by a certain group of people, then I feel like I'll have a purpose of life. Everybody's on the same level, but the hardest thing that you can ever do in this world is accept yourself for who you are. Accept yourself for who you are. And that does not necessarily mean stay on the same level as where you are. Accepting yourself for who you are does not mean staying on the level. Accept yourself for who you are, yes. But you do know that there are some parts of you that need some polishing up and working on and a little bit of an upgrade. There are parts of you that you have to work on. But there are parts of you that you cannot change. And those are the hardest parts of you to accept. Those parts that you try to hide because you felt like nobody is going to accept them. Those parts of you that you tried to hide because you felt like they were not worthy of love. And then you realize that those are the biggest parts that make you who you are. Those are the biggest pieces that fill up that puzzle of who you are. And there's definitely gonna be, there is no way out of the 7 billion people in this world, there's not gonna be one person who's gonna love the whole of you. But if you feel like you can't see that right now, then show up for yourself. You be the person that's gonna love all of you. Love your scars, love your wounds, love your broken pieces. They are who you are. Love that. And then you're going to realize and you're going to recognize that you don't need somebody else to love those parts of you, because nobody else is going to be your biggest fan more than you are your biggest fan. You cannot accept to feel loved by other people when you don't even give that type of love to yourself. Once you learn to love every single part of who you are, then you're able to attract that type of love from people. You attract the same energy that you give off. You attract the same energy that you give off. And that mindset takes you a long way. When you realize that you are, the energy that you give off, you will attract into your life people or situations or circumstances that you give off. So give yourself love, attention that you need. Give it to yourself. Give it to yourself. Heal yourself to that point. And then everything else will just simply follow. Isolation is something you should be grateful for. And stop sitting and sulking and saying, nobody cares about me, or I'm so alone, I'm so lonely. You're alone, yes. You're lonely, work on it. Work on it. What parts of you feel lonely? What parts of you feel like they're missing something? And attend to them. Fill those parts by yourself. Because you can. Yes, you do have the power. You just gotta look for it. 99.9% of ourselves just need ourselves. Those parts that you feel like need to be filled by people, by money, by anything, chances are you just need yourself. Because at the end of the day, once you're comfortable with your own presence, once you, I actually like saying this, once you're okay with your own presence, once you enjoy your own company, once you're okay by moving by yourself, once you are stronger alone, then you're just winning. You're winning at this game of life. Those are just my thoughts, though. Those are just my thoughts and what I understand about life. And what has kept me and built me to become the person that I am today is having this type of mindset. I need me more than I need anything else in this world. I need myself more in every situation of my life than I need people or family or money or any other physical, worldly things. So Yeah. Thank you for listening.